So, this movie, The Prestige, is about two magicians trying to compete by coming up with better acts, and one of them, named Borden, comes up with the act of the transported man, and he's basically transported from one spot to another. And Angier, his opponent, tries to figure out how to mimic that trick, only he goes to far lengths in order to perform it, and he ends up contacting Nikolai Tesla, and he asks him to invent a machine with the ability to transport. The thing about that machine is that it wasn't working the way that they wanted. It kept malfunctioning, or so they thought. It would make a copy of a hat that they tried to transport, but it would only transport the copy and leave the original motionless. They couldn't figure out why it wasn't working the way that they wanted. Well, the truth is that it was never a transporting machine. Tesla had accidentally built a cloning machine, so the copy was actually a clone of the original, and it would appear several hundred feet away. Tesla never got to finish that machine, and Angier was determined to make that trick work, even if it meant having to die. So what Angier decided to do was to have his original self fall into a water tank in order to eliminate the evidence that there was another him. He wanted to prove that it was the same person being transported from one spot to another. By the end of the movie, Angier finds out that Borden was using a double all along, that he actually had a twin brother who would dress up as another character so that no one would recognize him. So they would switch off every now and then, and Angier realized how much of a sacrifice he was actually putting into such a simple trick. And that sacrifice was that Angier was basically killing himself over and over again, leaving the clone to take over right after him, and continuing that cycle where he would continue to kill himself so that the next clone would be alive. And all that was done for the prestige of the transported man.
Like, my favorite moments was the day we actually met, because I didn't expect him to be that cool. You know what I'm saying? As soon as he turns around, gets up, yo, what up, man? I was like, what up, Mike? And he gave me a pound. We hugged each other. He said, yo, man, I've been waiting to meet you for so long, man. This is a great honor. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for making the time. I love movies. He was a moviegoer. He loves movies as well. And he was like, yo, man, I gotta take you to this theater. This new technology they got is like 4D. Like, it feels like, you know, the images are right in front of you, like you're actually in the mix of it. And I was like, nah, I know 3D. He's like, no, listen, you gotta check this out. I said, well, let's go. And he paused for a minute. He's like, okay, let's do it tomorrow. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I don't know how we expect to go to the movies, but you know what I'm saying? Like, this is Michael Jackson. Like, how the hell are we gonna actually go to the movies? So the next day, you know, he calls my room. We was both staying at the Palm in Vegas. He's like, you ready? I'm ready. I was like, yeah, let me get dressed. But at the time, I thought he was just joking. I didn't think he was really, I thought he was gonna probably just rent, you know, we go through the back late night or something. This is broad daylight. So he grabbed the kids. They looking normal. Mike comes out. He has his disguise on, you know. So I starts laughing because I didn't recognize him, you know. So we get into the theater, and then the manager greets us up front. So he comes and hands us the tickets. We're all seated. So as we, you know, talking, sometimes I forget that he's supposed to be in this disguise, you know. And I keep calling him Mike. Right, and this little girl hears it. She's like, and she looks over, and I think she recognized him. Like, I really think she did. So then when I realized she was peeping, then I started calling him Dave. But she wasn't stupid. So she runs up, shoo, full speed, goes all the way to the top of the theater. And I see her whisper. And I look up, and the girl's just pointing. And I know she's not pointing at me. Like, I didn't know this. And I think he kind of felt it, too. So right before the movie was over, we just all got up and started walking out. But by the time we got to the car, everybody in that place knew that possibly that could have been him.
Michael Jackson is not dead. Michael clone is dead, but Michael Jackson is not dead. Michael Jackson doesn't look anything the way he did. The slim Michael Jackson, because they know that's what y'all like. The Michael Jackson that y'all saw dancing with James Brown, that was a clone. They had to keep fixing on it because the clone was breaking down. He wasn't going into surgeries. See, clones also can't gain weight. So basically what they did, they had to keep doctoring on the clone of Michael who was alive. The one that was dancing with Michael, the dance with James Brown. Okay, that Michael Jackson, that wasn't the real Michael. Matter of fact, when they cloned Michael, that clones don't grow hair. So in other words, however they clone you, whatever you have, that's how you're gonna come out. That's just how the clone produce. So in other words, if you're a person that have long hair, however they clone you, that's how the clone gonna look. When they cloned Michael Jackson, his hair was never attached because the first Michael Jackson that was cloned, his head was 3rd to 4th degree burn in Pepsi commercial. He lost half his head. I mean, it wasn't gone, but it was very badly burned. Michael Jackson looked like a monster. Okay, and he was still slim. So they cloned him while he was under the knife. And when they cloned him, they needed 2 years to remake him because he didn't look nothing like Michael Jackson. I don't know if y'all can peep game. So when they cloned him, they had to make him lighter and make up this skin disease because his skin didn't look the same. His body, they changed everything about him. In the end, when Michael was looking really, really bad, the clone body was breaking down because clones don't think like humans. Clone have to have people around them to tell them what they do because they get adolescence. They can't think properly. It's called handlers, right? So when Michael started to break down, his body was breaking down. His nose was artificial. I don't know if y'all noticed, go back and Google Michael Jackson. No, it looks like a robot because it wasn't him. All right? His whole head was a wig. It was a cap because when they first cloned Michael, he didn't have any hair. It all burnt off in the Pepsi commercial. They put Michael in a capsule and cloned it. Brought him back 2 years as the clone, and Michael Jackson was watching all of this like, I can't believe they're doing this. So what happened to Michael? He just lived his life. Michael Jackson is still alive. He's already appeared on TV, but y'all didn't even know who he was. Go back and watch the CNN of Larry King, the guy with the glasses with the real bad burnt victim that played like Michael Jackson Satan when he was a kid. That's Michael Jackson. It burned him so bad it disfigured him. It tore up his skin. It did everything to him. You understand what I'm telling you? And also, after Michael was cloned, the real Michael Jackson, they bleached his skin so he would look nothing like Michael.
Joining us now here in Los Angeles, Miko Brando, who was with us almost every night after this untimely passing, longtime Michael Jackson friend attending the funeral, and Dave, yes, that's his name, Dave. He was David Rothenberg. He was set on fire in 1983, suffered, as you can see, terrible scars. Michael Jackson befriended him and paid for a lot of his surgeries. Dave is also attending the burial. Why Dave?
Well, to liberate myself from the confines of my father's criminality.
He caused the fire?
Yeah. He is a criminal, and he caused all this.
The story of the young boy, then known as Dave Rothenberg, made national headlines in 1983. 3 decades ago, his father soaked Dave's bed with kerosene and lit it on fire at a Buena Park motel during a bitter custody battle. Left for dead, he survived with burns to over 90% of his body. Dave then became a respected Las Vegas artist and a close friend of Michael Jackson.
To free myself of his name and his legacy, I decided to become my own person through changing my name.
Were you surprised, Dave, to hear from him when you were 7?
Oh, it's a very interesting story, Larry. It was kind of, the visit to his Encino house was very impromptu, and it was kept a secret by my mother. And I had always been kind of a admirer of his, not a fan per se, but I always loved his music. And my mother surprised me one day and brought me up to Neverland. And I entered an arcade, and there were all these Paul McCartney records all over this, The Girl Is Mine, and, you know, this and that. And I remember sitting down, and at the time, my favorite video game was Pole Position. And I was playing Pole Position, and I felt a little tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and there was Michael. And you know what, Larry? Huh? At that moment, we embraced, and that embrace never ended throughout our whole entire friendship.
David joins us today, and he insists he's not a victim. He's a survivor. David, please come join us.
Nice to meet you.
I was gonna say, I'm hanging out here with 2 GQ studs.
Look at this.
Pleasure.
Look at this.
Pleasure.
Color coordinated, too.
You know, and first things first, Dave, you go by Dave?
Yes, that's my legal name.
And you changed your name after this all happened. Why?
About 2 years ago, I changed it legally to Dave to liberate myself from my father and to establish myself as an artist. It was kind of like an artistic decision to do that.
And a lot of people will look at someone who's been burned and they think, okay, you know, physically, okay, I'm not seeing skin like I normally would on someone, but what a lot of people don't realize is what a toll it takes physically and the amount of pain. I wanted to talk with you briefly because one of the reasons we were excited to have you on the show is you're finally at a point in your life where pain no longer dictates it.
Almost. Currently, I'm undergoing a treatment called Calamari, which is it's a machine that they attach and it has electrodes on it. What it does is it scatters the messages to the brain to shut off the pain centers in the brain in those areas. And it's absolutely amazing. It's changed my life for the better.
Friends remember Las Vegas artist Dave. He died at the age of 42 last month at a Las Vegas hospital. Dave was badly scarred at the age of 6 when his father actually tried to burn him to death. Dave was a close friend of Michael Jackson, who he met shortly after that attack.
I felt like he had like Michael Jackson's spirit in him, because there were times that he even sounded like him talking, and it would just kind of blow my mind sometimes.
Well, Dave's cause of death is still under investigation.
Why Dave?
Well, to liberate myself from the confines of my father's criminality.
He caused the fire?
Yeah. He is a criminal, and he caused all this. To free myself of his name and his legacy, I decided to become my own person through changing my name.
You go by Dave?
Yes, that's my legal name.
And you changed your name after this all happened. Why?
About 2 years ago, I changed it legally to Dave to liberate myself from my father and to establish myself as an artist. It was kind of like an artistic decision to do that.
As for Michael's sometimes bizarre appearance, they say these bandages had nothing to do with secret surgeries.
Was he concealing an injury with those bandages?
No. That disguise to him was the burn victim look. Just
It was a
It was
disguise?
a disguise to him.
When you saw him coming downstairs, getting ready to get in the car with the bandages, what did you think?
Something's up with him.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, something's up.
Did you ever tell him?
How could you tell him that?
Right.
He's coming down with a kid, so we can't say, like, what the hell you got on, sir?
If they're listening to this, what do you want the kids to hear? What do you want to say to the kids?
You know, certainly we hope that we did the best that we could to make them feel like kids and provide them with some of the things that made them feel comfortable.
You were everything to your, to their father.
That's right. And he was everything to them. But he's watching them now.
He's watching.
He looks just like Michael. Just look in his eyes. That's Michael Jackson. He's disfigured. That's how he looked when he got done with the Pepsi commercial. And they knew the world wasn't ready to see that Michael Jackson, so they had to keep him alive. Remember what I said prior. They've been cloning since 1945. So Michael comes back 2 years later. He looks nothing like the real Michael Jackson, but people buy into it. He can still dance. Because the clones is good mimickers. They're good at mimicking, man. That's what they do. So he got all his moves, but he was a little bit stiffer. I don't know if y'all look at the old Michael and then look at the new Michael. He's a little bit stiffer. Okay? Now, when Michael first came back, didn't nobody really know how to take it. All right? Because I can't recall if Billie Jean came out before the Pepsi commercial. But Michael sold his soul way before then, because he did the Wiz commercial when Billie Jean wasn't even thought of. When he did the Wiz play, when he said you can't get in, you can't get out the game, Michael sold his soul a long time ago because Joe Jackson sold his children out long ago, and Joe Jackson forced his kids to have sex with Berry Gordy and Quincy Jones and amongst the other executive producers. Them boys was molested long ago. That's about Michael.
And Dave, yes, that's his name, Dave. He was David Rothenberg. He was set on fire in 1983, suffered, as you can see, terrible scars.
And then I start calling him Dave. He has his disguise on,
That disguise to him was the burn victim look.
It was a disguise?
It was a disguise to him.
I felt like he had like Michael Jackson's spirit in him.
But he's watching them now.
He's watching.
At that moment, we embraced, and that embrace never ended throughout our whole entire friendship.